Hi, this is me, Ivan Verstyuk, and I'm going to provide you an update with what's going on in Ukraine as Russia keeps fighting against Ukraine, against our army, against Ukrainian independence, and against our right to have all the basic freedoms we need to build prosperous and democratic society. Why I'm talking about this is because today I did a polling on my Twitter account asking people, my followers, what do they think would be the most probable outcomes of Russia's war. I offered several options as answers, as a response to this question. The first one was EU enlargement, then NATO enlargement, then maybe Russia isolation or anything else. But what people wrote kind of surprised me. What they wrote was a whole bunch of geopolitical talk. And some of the comments didn't make much sense, unfortunately. Sometimes you just have people on Twitter talking about chaos spreading around the world without any particular purpose. So let me do my description of what's going on with the war in Ukraine, so you would have a better understanding of facts. Because before you make your own conclusions about outcomes of the war, about geopolitics of the ongoing war, about all the complicated foreign affairs, international affairs going around, you need to know the facts and to understand the direction of war, its dynamics, its the way it evolves through time. Now I'll start with the northeast, which is Kharkiv region. It's neighboring to Russian Federation, and let me describe you how fighting looks like there. Ukrainian army has been advancing there for weeks. Ukrainian army deployed to northeast one of the most capable units, which is the Holodny Yar brigade. It's well trained, very well motivated, very tactically sophisticated, and able to perform number of operations involving even air defense action. So this is like a really mobile unit prepared for all kinds of combat. On the other hand, Russia deployed to the northeast its 20th Army, which is you can say it's like the weakest army that Russian Defense Ministry has, because the weakest one is the army of the so-called Donetsk People's Republic, which is deployed to the south. But the 20th Army has its own weaknesses. It's like 50-50 between professional contractors and conscripts. So basically, they have this soldiers in their 30s, 40s fighting along with guys who are barely school graduates. What Russian army does in the southeast is just number of platoons wandering around the region, the territory, going from village to village. As they were not able to conquer Kharkiv, which is a big city, they were not able to conquer any of the major cities or towns in the region. They go around conquering villages, which is looks like you just you use artillery for a couple of hours and then just go with your infantry into that village, hang Russian flag, and that's it. Ukrainian army is pushing those Russian militants quite hard from the west. And 2 days ago, Ukrainian army destroyed 20th Army's Command and Intelligence Center. It was located in Kharkiv region and was providing tactical guidance for Russian troops in the region. So now, these Russian soldiers left in Ukraine's northeast, they do not have any tactical guidance. They do whatever their officer on the ground tells them to do. And those officers, they sometimes lack information, access to internet, don't have reliable maps. Some of the soldiers are hiding in the woods and don't really know where they should go and what they should do next. I mean, for the Russian army, if it wants to retreat from Ukraine's northeast, it's not that easy. It's either you walk by feet to Belgorod Oblast, which is Russia's region neighboring to Kharkiv, or you walk by feet to the south, to the Donbass, to Severodonetsk or Slavyansk, and there try to join your Russian troops and continue your service. Both sides, both directions, retreating Russian soldiers would be met with Ukrainian troops who will be deciding their fate. Ukrainian counter-advance in northeast has been quite successful. Unfortunately, there is still a number of these Russian platoons wandering around the woods, crossing the rivers, and invading small villages where they, are not welcomed at all by the local population. But that's it. In the northeast, a Russian army is not able to produce any substantial combat results, any substantial territorial gains. So far, the northeast has been a successful operation for the Ukrainian army. Now let's go to the Donbass, which is east. Today, I read this Twitter post by a Russian analyst who lives in the US and is like really popular and considered to be good analyst in military affairs. And when he was writing something about the Donbass, he's put in question. So, as long as the stalemate goes in Severodonetsk, whose advantage does it become? Does this stalemate place in Putin's best interests or in Ukraine's best interests? Well, and he makes a conclusion that the longer stalemate occurs, the better it is for Vladimir Putin and Russia. Okay, we may put aside that this guy is a Russian analyst, though he lives in the US. But let's move to the substance of this question. Whose interests are reflected better in the timelines of the stalemate in its development? Ukrainian army is trying to exhaust Russian soldiers in the Donbass. Russian army deployed like its best troops that it has to this area, and this Wagner private military company is fighting there too, with getting better pay than the soldiers of the regular army, so far Russians have to rotate their troops on a weekly basis, which is unsustainable long term, because weekly rotation is complicated logistically. Then if you have a soldier fighting and doing like a week-long assignment, he might be just thinking, well, I'll do whatever I can because it's so horrible here and I just want to get out. So my main mission is just to stay here by any means and survive when my weekly assignment ends. That's it. Now the Russian Defense Ministry had to introduce these 3 months long contracts for veterans. This is like the shortest contract that Russian military has been offering to those willing to serve in the Russian army, because none of the veterans wants to be deployed to the Donbass for more than 3 months. No one even thinks about fighting there for 6 months or even a year. So that's how it is. Exhausting Russian troops might take time, might take a lot of effort from the Ukrainian soldiers and Ukrainian officers. And then Ukraine has all these new types of artillery that are being delivered to the front lines in the Donbass, and which are being put to use. And just Russian army sees, with their own eyes, the technical advantage that Ukrainian army has. It's pretty obvious that Ukraine has these new generations of artillery. Some of it really technically innovative. There's like digital era artillery that is able to conduct work automatically. You just basically need to drive it around, and it can target whatever needs to be targeted automatically. While Russian artillery is more of old style, I mean, they're still, of course, bringing danger to Ukrainian troops and Ukrainian civilians living in that region. But in terms of quality of weapons and munition, Ukrainian army feels itself much better in the Donbass. So that would be my answer to that Russian analyst's Twitter post where he was saying that the stalemate plays in Putin's best interest. No. That's Ukrainian army's tactics to exhaust Russian army and make this Donbass operation longer, so Russians would think twice before they want to advance at the Donbass area the next time. The cost of Russian advance, at least for 1 kilometer to the west in the Donbass area, is prohibitively high. For 3 weeks, Russian army hasn't been able to have any substantial territorial gains in the Donbass. They just keep destroying the civil infrastructure of the region, but they can't have any real territorial gains. Well, civil infrastructure losses are really substantial. Ukraine's government reported that overall around the country infrastructure losses are estimated at $103 billion, which is more or less half of Ukrainian GDP. So the losses are huge, very substantial. But in terms of combat progress, Ukrainian army is doing a very good job on the Donbass. This is usual tactics for defending the territory against the invaders. It's them who are interested in making any territorial gains at any cost. And you play with their plan, trying to play your own tactical games, and so far with all these personal losses in the Donbass, Russian army has all the reasons, and its commanders have all the reasons to rethink their strategy. That's first thing, and maybe consider diplomatic negotiations about creating humanitarian corridors in the Donbass, discussing both military and humanitarian issues, because Ukraine and Ukrainian army is prepared for many more months of combat in the Donbass area, while Russia's original plan was to fight as quickly as possible, which hasn't worked well for Russia. So I wouldn't be pessimistic about the fate of the Donbass. Ukraine has really good troops. They're well trained, well prepared, technically savvy, and they're able to do all kinds of assignments on the battlefield, whatever it takes. And now the third thing, the south. What we have in the south. So in the southern region, Russians have been able to establish some control over the Kherson. This is like a rather big southern Ukrainian city. And Russians have built like 3 defense lines in the Kherson region in the south, with fortification and trenches. And then they have reserves in the Crimea, which is like Ukrainian peninsula annexed by Russia yet back in 2014. In Crimea they have repair facilities, then they have hospitals for treating Russian soldiers wounded on the battlefields in southern Ukraine, and they performing surgeries there. Though Crimea has always had this huge problem with running water. Before the war, it had severe water crisis, and now they have hospitals which some of them don't have running water at that amount that's needed for like surgeries. So when a doctor in Crimea has to perform a surgery for Russian soldier without running water, I mean, what kind of quality of surgery that would be? 3 defense lines in southern Ukraine. That's what Russians have. But as Ukrainian troops have been doing their own counteroffensive with the support of local territorial defense, they've been able to push Russian army from the first defense line to the second one. Now they're on the second defense line, and there is one else left. Let me give you this fact. For supporting its infantry, Russian army deployed to the south T-62 tanks, which are really old and until the last month were kept in deep reserves just in case. Those tanks are so old they probably just need to be like recycled into anything else. Some of them don't even work well. But since Russia doesn't have any other tanks, it put these T-62 tanks into use. While tanks are like as it is, it's supposed to be used in an offensive operation. You can't get much use of a tank when you're defending the territory or when you're retreating. And that's what basically Russian army does in the south. It's just defending its territorial gains and sometimes retreats. Why would you need tanks for that is like a big question for all the military analysts. Why Russians are thinking that tanks will be helpful to them somehow in Ukraine's south. And the way Ukraine does its counteroffensive in the south, it's like a couple of big operations going on, and then many more local ones, which includes artillery shelling, then partisan movement, all kinds of insurgencies on the occupied territories, and Ukrainian troops making own, sometimes small, territorial gains in southern Ukraine. So, as well in the south, the situation for the Ukrainian army looks all right. It has been able to push Russians from the first defense line to the second defense line. They might use more reserves stationed in Crimea. If Russians would be pushed even further to the south, what they might do is use more of the Black Fleet. They have 5 cruisers in Crimea, a submarine, one and only submarine, and a couple of vessels able to conduct marine landing operations. Russia has been using Marines in Ukraine's south, but so far it's preserving them for reserves. The stereotype says that Marines are usually a well-prepared unit of any army, whether it's Russian army or any other army. Again, it matters what kind of rifles they have, what kind of machine guns they have, what kind of artillery they have. Marines usually are like really light on weapons. They do not use this like heavy weaponry. In any case, to me it looks like the best use for Marines is for advance, for offensive. If you use Marines for defensive operation, it's just they don't like it. The psychology of Marines is they like to attack. They do not like to defend anything. And the Marines is basically the only thing that Russia has in the reserves in Crimea. And if Ukrainian troops push further, then those Marines will have to defend their territory in Crimea, which is going to be a challenge for them. So this was, a short description of what's going on in the battlefields in Ukraine. I told you about northeast Kharkiv, I told you about east Donbass, and I told you about the south, Kherson and Crimea. Hopefully now you have a little bit more understanding what's going on in the battlefields and why sometimes I do sound optimistic in what I write, what I say, what I talk about. Especially you follow me on Twitter. While you may see all the other voices that saying that, oh come on, Ukraine is losing the war, Ukraine will lose all the territories it has and it will be like destroyed as a country. Well, no, this is not going to happen. Ukrainian army is really strong and is doing a really good job protecting us, our families, our right to live, work, and have a democratic country, free society, and market economy. This was Ivan Verstyuk. Thank you for listening.